Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership, their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business. That's an awesome reminder for marketing leaders that it's more than just managing your team and putting campaigns into market, but it's bringing together the fabric of the organization, because you sit at the heart of it from a marketing perspective, right? In one sense, you're a mirror of what's actually happening, and in the other sense, you're a spotlight that needs to shine it on to the market.
Yeah, you facilitate that it's really important to kind of translate both sides.
I am here with my guest, Ashley Johnston. She is the marketing director at JDXpert. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Caleb. Appreciate you having me.
Happy to have you here. Give us a bit of a summary of your journey as a marketer and a marketing leader. What brought you to today?
So I'm going to start back in college just because I find it a humorous story that maybe some of your listeners can relate to. I went into college undeclared, liberal arts, didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And then I think my junior year, they said, or right before my junior year, they said, you need to decide what you're going to do. So I went into my advisor's office and they handed me this large book. So of course, this was early 2000s where books were a thing. And I went down through, and the first one listed, because I said, no science, please, and very little on the math. And I went down through, first one was advertising and public relations. So I said, that sounds great. Let's go for it. And I'm glad I did. That kind of got me into marketing where I am today. Went all the way from ad sales to marketing agency to where I am now, which is an HR software company. So
that's awesome.
Kind of moving on up.
I was actually in a very similar boat than you. I was in state of Michigan playing football for university, and they make you go to school when they give you a football scholarship. So
I
had to pick a major and say almost maybe exactly the same story, but can't recall. Well, that's awesome.
See, you can relate.
Totally. JDXpert, what's your mandate personally? What do you get paid to do?
So I'm the marketing director. I kind of handle all of the marketing functions at JDXpert. So anything from product marketing to branding to content to website to demand gen, all of it is kind of in my purview. So that's what I do at JDXpert, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. And so not everybody can manage all of those disciplines with a team of one. So tell me about how you've been able to kind of operate within the reality that exists when there are constraints around capacity and people. How have you navigated that scenario?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think a lot of people go in thinking that they have to be the superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like that. I go in and think, okay, I must know everything to the 10th degree. I need to know everything that I'm doing. But the best thing to do is to focus it in on what you're good at, and then what you can maybe contract out to other people who have that talent. So that's what I utilize a lot. I have contractors that I depend on a lot to kind of manage the day-to-day tasks, and I try to get into the philosophy and the strategy behind the plan.
Makes sense. And that represents the path for a lot of marketing leaders in our audience and just in the world. So for you, because it's a relevant topic, what defines or how have you established your process for having really good, solid relationship and results out of the contractor model? And what have been some areas that have been challenging over your time there or in your career as it relates to the topic of contracting? What's worked well for you and what causes challenge?
Yeah, I think maybe the challenge is kind of self-imposed if you don't do it properly. So what I mean by that is if you're not open and honest and transparent with your contractor, they can't be a partner. They
Mm,
can't help you out. And I mean, these are experts. They
right,
wouldn't be in the job that they have if they weren't experts in their field.
right,
So you need to give them a bit of leeway and so that they can use their expertise. But you also have to give them, a transparent view into what you're trying to
right,
do with them.
right.
And so you have to give them
And so
that
has that been
background.
something that you've learned over time to be able to operate that way so to get the best result? Was it a painful lesson? Like,
I think a lot of it actually goes back to early on in my career, I did a lot of graphic design.
okay.
So I saw it from the other perspective, where there were clients that weren't as transparent, weren't giving me exactly what they were looking for, and it made it difficult. So I found that if I can just depend on their talents,
Yeah.
but then give them boundaries to stay within, they give their best work, and
Yeah.
then we have a great, working relationship.
Oh, that's great. What have you seen in yourself as a marketing leader that sort of started to emerge as your self-admitted superpower? Like what would you say you
Mhm.
lean on the most as a marketing leader because you feel really comfortable with it and it's best sets you up to do your job. What is your marketing leadership superpower?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that I get insanely jealous with other ideas, by other ideas. You see all this great content and there's so much
Mm,
talent in this space that you look at it and you think, "Oh my goodness, like why did I why did I not come up with that idea?" But then my superpower, I think, is to just sit back in that idea, log it, and then see, does this apply to me now? Does this
mhm,
apply to what we are doing? And if it doesn't, that's okay. Like that, if it's not you and your place, your company right now, it doesn't make your ideas any less than, say, theirs. It's just not right for your company right now.
That's a great superpower. It's the first time I've heard that. And it's so
Mhm.
great because in my mind, it really protects the company from making painful and costly mistakes related to random acts of marketing, right? Like
Right.
doing a bunch of things because it is very difficult when you see something, maybe it's a related industry or maybe unrelated, but you see it online and you're like, damn, I gotta, and
Yeah.
you do that 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times, and all of a sudden you don't even know which way is up, right? And so having the ability to discern, to first recognize this is a good idea, let it influence me or motivate me, but then having that time to discern, does this really align with what we're trying to get done, and then decide not to do it. That is a superpower. A good job.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's you have to know your audience. And I think I was reading a book by Seth Godin, and he has this line that just kind of sticks with me. Make something better for some people.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of us, I mean, you talk to anybody in leadership, you say, well, who's our audience? Who are we trying to help? They often want to say, well, everybody.
Yeah, what
Everybody
do they
could
say?
use our product or
Men,
service.
men over 30.
Right,
Like, okay.
right, right. But you have to know who your audience is and really key into them. And you can't help everybody. You can't be the hero to everybody, and that's okay. You
Yeah.
just need to know who you're helping and make their lives better. And by having that understanding of who your audience is, how they like to consume information, the information that they like to consume,
Mhm.
the problems they have, behaviors, all of that will help you market better.
Totally. I like that. So the phrase was make something better for some people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Was that from the book This Is Marketing or which one?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You got to get
Yep.
back to that one. It's on the shelf. It's been sitting there for
Yeah.
a while. Okay, so
See,
that
I do my best reading on airplanes with audiobooks.
not
So
me. The second the wheels take off, I am dead asleep. Every
you're
flight,
oh,
I can't
I envy that.
no, I don't because I wish I could get some work done, do some reading.
Yeah.
good night immediately.
Audiobooks.
So going back to this is, we talked about the superpowers and what makes you feel very
Mhm,
comfortable and confident in your role. What would
mhm.
you be willing to admit is the hardest part of your job? The thing you find most challenging personally is, yeah, in this role of leading a marketing function for the company.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. I think even though I've been in this industry and in marketing for well over a decade, I still struggle with having those that hold the purse strings understand the value of marketing, the seriousness of it, and what it can do for an organization,
Mhm.
especially when you bring up the word brand. They
Right.
often just think, oh, that's a logo or a website or something like that. And no, the brand is everything. It's kind of what you run on and who you are. And if you don't know who that is, then you struggle with everything,
Right.
not just marketing, but product development and customer success and all the different areas in your organization. You really struggle if you
Mm.
don't know who you are.
Yeah. So what have you tried to do without getting into the details, but what have you tried to do in terms of getting buy-in and getting understanding
Mhm.
across different stakeholders within the organization or the CFO or the CEO? Like,
Yeah, I think that's kind of drawing on another thing that I hope I possess as a characteristic is just empathy and
mm,
understanding because you have to understand their world.
right.
You know, they're not concerned as much maybe on a daily basis of website views and social media following and brand. They might be consumed by developing the product or, you know, balancing the finances for the organization. So you need to understand what their problems are, what
Right.
their behaviors are, and then put it into their perspective and their goals.
And easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you're
that's
right.
why it's still a challenge.
Yeah.
I have never found the secret sauce. I'm trying,
Yeah.
you know. I think it's always going to be a struggle.
Right.
But that's why you have to have that open communication between departments, internally, externally, everybody, even just with your customers too. You need to really understand them and their ideas and perspectives.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. With your marketing system today, what is one area that you can comment on that you are just the most proud of? It works the best, it
Mhm.
shows the most results. We're going to keep doubling down on it because it's proven success. What's one area you're most proud of within the marketing system today?
So, what I'm most proud of is so we not, I want to say not until maybe 2020 did we have a dedicated marketing budget.
Okay.
And I've been with this organization for 12 years. So prior to that, it was very just scrappy, do what you can with the money that you can
Yeah.
pull from whoever's going to sign a check for you. And it was about thought leadership. So I was able to work with our co-founder of our organization who just truly is a brilliant mind in our area of expertise, which is job descriptions,
Hmm.
and kind of putting him into that thought leadership perspective
Yeah.
position, I should say, by making sure that he is speaking to people through webinars, through in-person sessions, blog posts, ebooks, all of the content that actually helps somebody manage their job information better was something I was really proud of because we created an entire category.
I
This
was
didn't
gonna
really
say it's
exist before.
before I met you, I had no idea,
Yeah,
but I see the obvious impact and value, and I can also see why in such a unique industry or offering like this, thought leadership can carry a ton of weight because you're trying to make people
yeah,
understand like how much money are you wasting by writing shitty job descriptions?
yes, yeah, exactly. And
You know?
and I think the idea of thought leadership is becoming even more crucial. And I don't want to say just go out and try to throw your brand and your perspective on others.
Mhm.
If you do that, people can see through it
Totally.
and see that it's not authentic. But if you come truly by saying, I know you have a problem and here's how to solve it. And yes, our product or service will help you do that better, but you can also just take these steps and take this information and do it on your own.
Right.
And that's the people that I follow. That's the people that you see on LinkedIn that are very successful or anywhere else.
Yeah.
They understand their customer and what their struggles are and put it into.
And then when it comes time for them to write a really important job description for a key role, they're going to remember
Mhm.
you gave something of value to them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have
So
checklists and all sorts of things like that to kind of help them on their journey to do this because most people aren't even doing this
right.
sort of work. They try. It's like bubble gum and
Yeah.
tape. So they need to have a better way to do it. You just have to teach people that there
Yeah.
is a better way to do things.
You're proud of the fact that you started at a time where really no marketing strategy, no marketing budget, but you were able
Hmm.
to, it sounds like to me, stand this function up as a legitimate function within the organization that demands its own budget, its own strategy, its own
Yeah.
place in the organization. So you're taking steps towards positioning marketing's importance
Yeah.
within the growth of the organization.
Right. And, yes, at the end of the day, it's about making sales.
Right.
I mean, it it is for any industry. If you don't, you're not going to be around for very long.
Mm.
But I think we're seeing that you can't just throw everything into the sales funnel right away. People are spending longer and more time in those beginning stages where they're learning about you, learning about the the solutions that you bring to the table,
Yeah.
and it's just showing that marketing is having even more impact than I think I've ever seen before.
That's great. What's an area of your marketing strategy or mix today that you wish you could wave a magic wand on and improve, however you
Yeah.
define
Well, we were talking about this a little earlier about trade shows,
it?
and I will say I love them in order to get in front of people
Yeah.
and from a partner's perspective especially, but the I'll share a little story with you of something that did not work out well. A
Hmm.
few years ago, I we had our booth in our home office in
Right.
North Carolina, and I am located in Pennsylvania. So I was working remotely, trying to make sure that we had everything packed up, doing FaceTime and lists and all sorts of things to make sure that it was shipped out in time. Well, our VP of marketing and sales at the time got to the trade show location before I did. And he calls me as I'm getting ready to get on the plane saying, our booth isn't here. Our booth isn't here. What are we going to do? There's no way. There's no way. Well, I called the office. They did not send it for some reason or somehow forgot it. So I'm getting on a plane, trying to, thankfully, I have some design background, designing some kind of, setup, some booth setup, trying to do a 24-hour print job with FedEx.
Wow.
And we at least had something there. So I think the lesson in that is just pivot. I feel like Ross from
The lesson, yeah, no, you're way more positive about it than I am. I gotta improve there. I said the lesson learned is just don't do the fucking trade show, but
yeah. Well, that could be.
no, I don't. I kid because like your point, a specific industry call for specific places where
Yeah.
everyone gather at specific times and but yeah, I think that's a funny story and it kind of speaks to your even though you've been there for a while, it's still there's grittiness to you, scrappiness
Yeah.
to try to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
What
And I don't think I would be happy in my position if I didn't get to do that hands-on
yeah,
learning.
totally.
I might complain about it along the way, especially if there's a missing booth and I have to try to figure it out, but it kind of makes you better at your job.
Yeah,
So you
that's
have to keep your hands in it.
how is your marketing department function going to need to evolve over the next 1, 2, 3 years to keep up with the business's targets and objectives? How do you see
Mhm.
you requiring to evolve yourself and the function?
Yeah. So I report directly now to the chief revenue officer, and we just had this conversation yesterday about how marketing will evolve. And a lot of it is really honing in on who we are and what we do and the value that we bring. Now,
Mhm.
we have a pretty clear, defined message now, but getting people to act now is, hard for anybody. But we really want to make sure that we are a source, a resource for these individuals. So just getting better at our content,
Mhm.
getting better at sales enablement. So making sure our sales team has all of the resources to make the sales process easier. And then also even just the product marketing function. I
Mhm.
see a lot of organizations really growing that function, not only just having that market research and understanding where they fit in the market, but also just having that connection between product, marketing, sales, and elsewhere. And I think the larger your organization gets, the more disconnected that can be. And as we're growing, we're finding that we need to kind of get back to that connection between different departments.
Interesting. So you see that as being your mandate going forward is to
Yeah.
facilitate this integration.
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome reminder for marketing leaders that it's more than just managing your team and putting campaigns into market, but it's bringing together the fabric of the organization because you sit at the heart of it from a
Hmm.
marketing perspective, right? You're
Yeah.
in one sense you're a mirror of what's actually happening, and in the other sense you're a spotlight that needs to shine it on to the market.
Yeah, you
It's a great
facilitate
reminder.
that, that it's really important to kind of translate both sides.
Yeah.
The product side, because they're coming up with great things that and elements that will help somebody do their job better. And
Mhm.
then the market is demanding certain things,
Right.
but there's not always a connection there, and there needs to be a
Mhm.
connection there. And that's where I see myself being the translator and also just constant communicator.
Got it. We're at the part of the show where I am going to ask you a question that was left for you by one of my previous guests or the previous
Ah,
guest.
okay.
And after you share your thoughts on that, you are going to leave a question for my next guest. And keeping in
Okay.
mind that all of the guests are marketing leaders with lean internal marketing teams that are trying to support an aggressive growth target for their organization. So
Hmm.
you're all in the same boat, is what I'm.
Yes.
So this question was, what is your approach or how have you found success in, and you spoke to it a little bit earlier, so I'm going to rephrase it, is getting buy-in to certain marketing systems or campaigns when you don't have the benefit of the smoking gun data that says you would be
Mm,
crazy not to double down investment in this area. But what has been your approach in getting people to buy in when it requires a bit of trust and belief
mm.
to be able to do
Great
that.
question, because like I said, it's still a struggle.
Right.
I don't have the perfect answer for that question, but I think again, it goes back to just understanding their objectives and the business objectives. Because if you can tie it to a business objective, then you have a leg to stand on. You can say, well, this year we've decided that these are the three objectives or OKRs that we have moving forward, and marketing plays a
Yeah.
critical pos position on that on
Right.
getting to those. So we need to do this.
Yeah.
So I think if you can tie it to a greater business goal, that's really key.
Yeah. Yeah. I think empathy is, you answered that earlier. I think that is the way. What are
Hmm.
you curious about leaving our next guest with in terms of a question?
Oh, I wish I thought of this before, because then I would have
No, no
taken a
problem.
little bit of time. But I think just the attribution model. This is something that I've been thinking of, especially with longer sales cycles for marketing. We know that people don't come right in and buy something right away,
Mhm.
but kind of measuring the impact of all of the touch points along the way. I haven't really found a very clean way to do that and would love someone else's perspective on it.
I love it. I will jot that down and I'm going to ask it to the right the right person, somebody that is subject to a long sales cycle.
Yeah,
Then I'll share it back with you. Thank you very much for giving us a peek into the way you're playing this game of
absolutely.
marketing leadership. It's not straight line and the answers aren't clear, but I like your approach based on, empathy, based on, facilitating understanding and integration and being a glue to the organization. I love it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Caleb. I really appreciate it.